Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking more about the whole COVID pandemic because that's been a pretty crazy situation or whatever. There's been a lot of updates, I guess, in the whole situation, so I guess it's kind of important to talk about. So the daily record levels for cases across the US has continued to rise. There's been a number of hotspot states that have kind of erupted, including Florida, and COVID-19 deaths are gradually rising once again. Most of you live here in the US, so I guess it's kind of important to talk about these kinds of situations. Daily new coronavirus cases in the US have peaked at over 60,000 new cases a day in recent days, and it is still pretty steadily climbing, so who knows what it'll even peak out at. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the #1 contagious disease doctor in the United States, has warned that it may even peak out at over 100,000 cases. As of right now, there have been over 12.91 million global cases with over 569,000 global deaths, but here in the United States alone, there's been over 3.3 million cases and at least 135,000 deaths. But even with the rise in cases and everything, Trivago CEO Axel Heffer told CNBC that the company has observed a decline in travel demand in response to the rise in COVID-19 cases in parts of the US. As more hotspot states start to erupt out and we start to see cases rising all across the country once again, obviously a lot of people don't really want to be traveling about. Now, if you don't know, Trivago is a platform to search for and book hotels, and they expect to see a bumpy ride for travel in the months ahead due to the public health crisis. Now, with schools slated to reopen in late August and early September across the country, there's been a lot of conversation about whether or not that's even going to happen. A lot of people seem to be on board with the idea of schools reopening, while some states are talking about and cautioning against schools even reopening in the first place. The World Health Organization actually warned global leaders against turning the decision to reopen schools into yet another political football in this game. Now, obviously, if schools do reopen, it's just a nature of the fact that kids are probably going to start spreading COVID throughout the school system, and some kids are going to end up contracting the virus for themselves, taking it home to family members. I mean, let's be honest, it's impossible to get, hundreds if not thousands of kids into the same building and expect for them to social distance and keep their hands washed and to wear masks and to not mess with one another. It's just simply not going to happen. The whole possibility is honestly unfathomable. I mean, we could see a completely crazy spike in cases among not only children, but just in the country alone. Like I said, the danger of school isn't even just the fact that, your 6-year-old little Billy might go into school and end up getting the virus because some kid coughed in his face, but the possibility that asymptomatic kids also bring the virus home. And then on top of that, kids who don't even show symptoms for a few days like COVID is known to do. They bring it home, give it to mom and dad who go to work or whatever, and they give it to more people. The spread could end up being pretty crazy if things like this happen. Once again, it's not fully certain whether or not schools are going to reopen if cases keep peaking out the way that they are with new records. It's very possible that we end up seeing schools not reopen in large parts of the country. The debate is still kind of going on. I don't really know for sure whether or not we're going to end up seeing this be something where we don't end up seeing schools open. I wouldn't be surprised if we did see schools close for at least a few more months after all this is said and done. Now, current studies do show that COVID does not generally make children as sick as adults, but however, research on COVID-19's impact on children is still limited, meaning that they haven't done enough research into the entire science behind it to see whether or not this is actually something that we need to take into consideration. We still don't know the long-term effect of the coronavirus on children's health, although obviously they tend to have milder symptoms. Throughout this entire pandemic, the most affected when it comes to deaths generally tends to be elderly adults, as their immune systems are usually more compromised and weaker than those of, fully grown adults in their 20s through 40s, children in their teens, things like that. Now, some good but also bad news has also come out in the last hour or so here, as World Health Organization officials said that patients who recover from COVID-19 actually may be able to get the virus again, but it does also suggest that they do have immunity for at least a few months. There isn't a complete answer when it comes down to this entire subject yet, but as of right now, the science seems to believe that people who do get COVID build up an immunity to the virus for at least a few months, but then, after that immunity wears down, it's very possible that they end up actually being possible to contract it again, meaning that hypothetically speaking, in like a 6-month period or something like that, somebody could not only just get COVID and transmit it to family members and then become immune, but they could also hypothetically reset that entire cycle and end up getting it all over again. When you get an infection or a virus or something like that, your body and your immune system produce something called antibodies, which are produced to kind of respond to foreign particles or antigens. These help your body's immune system fight off infections and diseases. When you get sick with a virus, it produces antibodies to that particular virus in the recovery process, which usually will help protect you from getting reinfected. as your body, next time that you end up getting it, will be able to detect that virus or those particles way earlier in the entire process and hopefully seek out and destroy them. Now, once again, it is very possible that people with COVID, after they get it, they do produce antibodies to the virus, but then after a few months, maybe the body somehow forgets about this, and you can end up getting the whole process started all over again. Now, obviously, the economic impact of COVID has been completely insane worldwide. Here in the United States, unemployment spiked, and in many other countries, and the stock market crashed, and a lot of other crazy things happened. But good news is, in just June, new home sales jumped 55% annually, at least in sales of newly built homes, according to a survey by John Burns Real Estate Consulting. This was the largest annual gain since the housing boom more than a decade ago. Now, obviously, COVID's impact is supposed to be playing a role in the entire jump, as the supply of existing homes is starting to decline and residents prefer new high-tech homes for easy work-from-home potential. Many buyers are also fleeing to the suburbs and away from large cities, meaning that most of the major population centers in the US are seeing people start to leave for the suburbs. The belief right now is that a lot of computer-oriented people have proven to coworkers that they can be productive from home and have sensed or officially been given the green light to work from home at least a significant portion of the time after a vaccine has been found. Across the United States, new home sales were greatest in the Northeast with an 86% annual jump, and over in Florida they saw an 84% increase, while California lagged behind. The World Health Organization, though, is warning that too many countries are heading in the, quote, wrong direction as coronavirus continues to rapidly spread across the globe. Now, just because the United States is seeing an uptick in cases and it's still pretty bad here doesn't mean that it's not spreading in other places around the planet. The United States and Brazil combined reported a 111,319 new COVID case on Sunday, according for roughly half of all new cases reported worldwide just in two countries. And as of Sunday here in the United States, cases are growing by 5% or more in 37 states and also in Washington, D.C. The World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, I think is how you say it, the agency's top official, he ended up criticizing some responses from countries to the virus, saying that their actions have not matched the seriousness of the pandemic. He said that the virus is, quote, going to get worse and worse and worse, but it doesn't have to be this way. The United States has been criticized pretty much for its response to the entire situation as well. Now, also, Hong Kong Disneyland is actually going to be shutting its doors again on July 15th. The theme park Disney runs in Hong Kong will temporarily close once again on Wednesday after the island reported a spike in coronavirus cases. Hong Kong Disneyland actually just reopened less than a month ago, just a few weeks back, after closing down back in January during the first surge of COVID-19 cases in the region. Now, the local government has limited the group gatherings to 4 people from 50 and forced 12 different kinds of businesses, including gyms and gaming centers, to shut down for a week. But here in the United States, Disney's Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom will be reopening in Orlando, Florida. As a matter of fact, it actually did on Saturday. So, speaking of the United States, Dr. Scott Gottlieb says that U.S. students are more vulnerable than kids elsewhere, and that children in the U.S. are more likely to become severely sick and die from COVID-19 than kids in other countries because the U.S. has a comparatively unhealthy population, saying that we, quote, have more comorbid illnesses among young people in this country, more asthma, more obesity, more diabetes, so there's going to be a higher risk with the school-age population. The United States' obesity epidemic has been something addressed for going on 2 decades now, and President Donald Trump vowed last week to pressure governors into reopening schools even as the U.S. outbreak continues to balloon, especially in a number of hotspot states across the South and West. Coming down to it, Senator Marco Rubio said that the costs of not reopening schools in states like Florida are extraordinary. He suggested that some high-risk Florida counties take, quote, additional measures to reopen their schools in the fall as the state gets battered by the pandemic. He said that they think that they need to be flexible about all sorts of things, and stressed that the costs of not reopening schools will be an issue. The senator's remarks came a day after Florida reported the largest single-day increase in positive COVID-19 cases of any state since the crisis began. More than 15,000 cases were confirmed Sunday in the Sunshine State, and last week, Florida's education commissioner ordered schools throughout the state to reopen in August for in-person instruction at least 5 days a week. President Trump has pushed state leaders to reopen schools in the fall, threatening to cut off federal funding if in-person classes do not resume. In some good news, companies such as Pfizer and BioNTech's vaccine candidates have gotten the Federal Drug Administration's fast track, meaning that their 2 vaccine candidates were granted the ability to, I guess, push their way through the entire process a little bit faster. Now, this has been happening ever since this pandemic started, and it's been really one of the first times that we've kind of seen this kind of situation unfold. Lots of vaccine candidates from several different companies have started to come out, and the FDA has been kind of approving them for fast track, trying to get the vaccine out as fast as possible, not only to ease the public's mind on the virus, but also to hopefully medically combat it as well. Now, the company said in a statement that the designation was based on preliminary data from the candidates' phase 1 and 2 trials, which are actually still ongoing, but on July 1st, both companies released early data on the trials. The company said that they expect to start the late-stage clinical trials that will involve up to 30,000 participants as soon as later this month, meaning that the virus's hopeful vaccine candidates are actually pushing their way very quickly through the entire system. Now, it's not guaranteed that we will have a vaccine that works within the next few weeks or months, but hopefully that will be the case, as dozens of global companies have started to come out and produce their own coronavirus pandemic fixers in these different vaccines. A lot of other countries right now are working on preventing any second or third waves, as there has been spikes in some places, including China, where the entire pandemic actually broke out from. The United States, though, we're not really through our first wave anyway, so it's kind of, I guess, hard to say that we're trying to prevent a second wave. We are seeing another big spike, but we never really flattened the curve to begin with. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel, follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubToOptimus, make sure to check out Shop Opti down below. Thank you to my channel members, your support helps my channel tremendously, and until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, hopefully not having COVID, and signing out.